Hi everyone, I'm Alex Rosenfeld, founder of Freshwater Investments, and this is Coffee with the T-Bird podcast. I sit down with fellow T-Birds who are making an impact in business, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Each episode features conversations that explore the pivotal moments, personal motivations, and lessons learned on their journeys. Whether you're a student, alum, or someone passionate about business and personal growth, you'll walk away with fresh ideas. This is a bit more than a podcast. It's a platform for connections, storytelling, and celebrating the global spirit of Thunderbird. This podcast is sponsored by Freshwater Investments. At Freshwater, we make it simple for you to invest in large apartment communities across the United States so you can earn passive income, grow your capital, and benefit from real estate tax breaks without owning or managing property yourself. Good morning, Doug. Welcome to the show.
Alex, good morning. Thank you very much.
Where are you right now? I know you live in Castle Rock in Colorado, but are you on the road?
Home is Castle Rock, Colorado. I'm flying back home tomorrow morning.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Was born in the Los Angeles area in Pasadena, grew up in Fullerton, and lived there through elementary school. And when my parents were transferred to Seattle, so moved between elementary school and junior high to Seattle, and went through junior high, high school, college, and the first couple years post-college in Seattle. So stayed on the West Coast, but went from warm to cool.
So when were you growing up? What was your dream job at that time? Did you dream to be a CEO when you were a kid?
No, never really thought about it. Although my dad was in business and was a co-owner of a small company, but my dream job was to be a doctor. I always had in the back of my mind, I enjoyed sciences as I was growing up, and my parents had sent me to some science courses and things over summer breaks and enjoyed that. Really had planned to go into medicine, started college with that in mind. And yet in the back of my mind, Alex, I always knew that I was a little squeamish when it comes to blood and whatnot. I think I have to face the facts on this at some stage before I go too far into pre-med. And so I went to a health sciences fair at the university my first year, and they were conducting a seminar on amputation. And I figured, you know what, if I can sit through this, med school, here I come. And I sat in the front row, and they had the video, big screen video, very graphic, a doctor explaining all the processes. I think they were starting to just draw the line on the guy's leg. And the room started spinning. I said, nope, this isn't for me. I decided I would major in the next thing I got an A in. Fortunately, that was a marketing in class.
That's a great story. Did you have a job while you were in high school?
Yeah, I worked. I kind of took jobs as soon as I was possibly able to do something to earn money. And in high school, I did a couple things. Probably the most impactful was working in a restaurant. And while it wasn't a high responsibility role, the two managers of the restaurant, a husband and wife, got to the point where they totally trusted our team. And we were high school students, maybe a couple college students. Mm-hmm. But it really empowered us. They would leave at 7 p.m. and we would run the restaurant. We would close it down. We would do the banking. We would lock the doors at night. To this day, that made a real impact that they would trust this group of high school and college kids to run their restaurant.
Yeah, that's very empowering. So, did you have any other kind of big influencers while you were growing up? Family members, mentors, role models?
I had a great childhood. I had an idyllic childhood. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was a classic neighborhood mom. The neighborhood kids were always in the house. They were always welcome. And so she set a real strong environment of welcomeness and, I guess today we'd call it inclusion. I don't know that she would have used that word. It was just love, just loving. And so that was a great backdrop from a personality and core values perspective. My dad, very dedicated individual, took great care of mom and the family and worked very hard, cared for his customers. I remember coming home at night, when he would come home at night and he would talk about his customers, not so much as customers, but as friends. And he knew their families. That was important to them, important to him, to know their families and what they did together. So that was a great role model. We had a close family, grandparents and aunts and uncles. And again, we were always in one another's houses. I had cousins who were just 10 years older than me. Of course, when you're a little guy, and your cousins are teenagers, you look up to them and they could do no wrong. And it happens that one of them was in a California surf rock band. And that was pretty cool. And he would invite me and my little brother to come into their practices. And, that was, pretty special. So, in an interesting sort of way, he was a big influence because of his humility. He was very popular, and yet, he reached out and had these two little kids come along to their practices and such, and I got to see him and his humbleness, and that was interesting. On the other end of the spectrum, his father was an executive of a Fortune 500 company and very influential. He was the president of the U.S. Manufacturing Association one year. So, I had these bookends of the surf band kid and his dad, and then my dad, and mom. It was a terrific environment to grow up with, and they really created an environment where you could try things and you could do new things and you could attempt them, sports and classes and things, succeed or fail. That wasn't important. The big thing was you tried.
So what did you try? And where did you fail or succeeded and or learn any lessons?
Well, I played baseball early on in Little League in Southern California. That was pretty common, and turned out I did okay with that. When my parents transferred to Seattle, I got in on just the last few days of elementary school, and it was really difficult because all of the other friendships were formed. It wasn't real common for people to move into the community back then. And so being the new kid right at the end of sixth grade with all these people that had gone through elementary school together, I stuck out like a sore thumb. And, I was teased and, just not brought into to the fold very easily. And this one event changed that. And I can thank my baseball days in Southern California for this. There was a traveling program, and it was called Old Woody. And basically it was a kind of a values and, a program that come around to elementary school. They teach values, they teach about performance, and they teach about, teamwork and such. And one of the things they did as an exercise is they would hung a car tire from a tree, and you had to throw a baseball through the car tire. And all these other kids lined up, and I got pushed to the back of the line. So they're all going, and I think you got 2 or 3 chances, and very few of the balls went through the tire. So when I get up there, it's like, oh yeah, there's Doug. I put all 3 balls right through the middle of the tire, and suddenly. That broke the ice. Suddenly I was a good guy. Everything, the skies cleared and life was good.
Excellent. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing. So now let's shift gears to your Thunderbird story. How did this chapter begin? Your life. How did you hear about Thunderbird, and how did you decide to attend Thunderbird?
Well, there's a good story there. I was working for a company in Spokane, Washington, a very interesting company. We were the 2 brothers that started the company post-World War II. One was an inventor and one was a marketeer. And the inventor invites his brother, the marketeer, down to the shop, and he says, "Look what I invented." And it was a bank of incandescent lamps, and he figured out a way to turn them on and off electromechanically. Alex, that became a time and temperature sign. The marketing brother said, "Okay, well, that's cool. What are you going to do with it?" "I don't know," he said. So the marketing guy put thought to it and said, "I'm going to go down to the national, Spokane National Bank and tell them that we could put a sign on the side of their building that flashed the time and the temperature. And he said, I'll tell the bank president that everybody driving by and walking by is going to look up and see Spokane National Bank, and the name recognition, the brand value, and all of that is going to appreciate. He was successful. It got to the point, Alex, where every bank in America, basically when an architect designed the branch or the headquarters, they contacted us and had our artists and our architects design in a time and temperature sign. And so that led into scoreboards. We did scoreboards around the world. We did the big Spectacolor system down in Times Square, and we put technology around the world. I ended up in the international department of this group, and they turned around to me and said, you're the newest guy in the company. You figure it out. How do we ship this stuff overseas? We've just sold a large system. It's going to Asia. How do we get it there? So I had to learn, the crating, the insurance, the freight, the transportation, all of that. And it was a struggle. I was 2 years out of university, and I called our Department of Administration International Trade Group in Spokane. There's a guy that I had met at a conference, and I said, Bill, is there anywhere you learn how to do this? And just like that, he said, Thunderbird. Wow. I said, what's that? I had already started a master's program in the evening. When he said this, he explained what Thunderbird was, sounded good. I hopped on an airplane, got permission to sit through some classes, eat in the cafeteria. And Alex, I felt like I was among family. This was my tribe. The group at Thunderbird, the professors, what they taught, they were pragmatic. They were open with the students. It was more, there was classrooms, and yet it was almost like a seminar, and people were participating. And you heard different languages spoken, and different cultures were obviously very visible. And the backdrop, all of that was the tripartite program of the business, culture, and language. It struck me and said, this is it. I came back, made plans to get to Thunderbird. Fortunately, thing worked out. They admitted me, and off I went about 6 or 8 months later.
Great. Did you have any specific focus, like finance or marketing, or at that time?
Yeah, I did. I kind of took an industrial marketing track with the education.
Great. And tell me about your favorite memories that you created with your friends at Thunderbird.
Well, it was, I think, the relationship. At the time, it was just being immersed in this group of people that had a common interest and vision of international commerce and building value throughout the world through competitive advantage in different areas would have, and bringing solutions together and ideas together and products together and people together. It was infectious, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. What I didn't realize at the time is the relationships that were being built that would last a lifetime. Big events in my life have been surrounded by Thunderbirds. And so whether I knew them in school or met them through alumni activities afterwards, again, it's a group of people you feel a kinship with. There's an acceptance, there's a drive, there's an ambition, and yet there's a humbleness and an appreciation for others that is just top-notch.
That's right. And I was fortunate enough to meet you through this alumni network.
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
What is your involvement with the school right now?
I'm sitting on the TGAN Council, the Thunderbird Global Alumni Network group, and have been for several years. I was asked to be a co-chair when that group first formed, and so I served in that capacity. I've now rolled off of being a co-chair, but still a member of the network.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about this network, and what are you guys getting together once a year or twice a year? What's the goals of this group?
Well, the goal of the group is to promote Thunderbird and to support Thunderbird leadership with feedback and ideas and financial support, and both personally and also help expand that out. Recruiting, just all initiatives associated with the school. There's different committees within that that deal with recruiting, that deal with curriculum, that deal with provide support on ongoing, education, executive education and such. So the group meets twice a year. Once and everything is provided virtually, although we're all encouraged to attend at least one meeting in person each year. The meetings bounce between Phoenix and some other location. We just had a meeting in Phoenix recently associated with the global reunion. We've done that a couple times. It's a great synergy there. The meeting prior was in London. So we try to move it around where it's a little more easy for others to travel. Everybody's not always coming to Phoenix. The group is very diverse, people representing different industries, different cultures, different regions, and such. So it's a very well balanced. It really mirrors the Thunderbird mission and student population.
So what does it mean for you personally to be part of that council?
Well, Thunderbird changed my life. It really, really did. It opened up a lot of opportunities, as I mentioned, and it introduced me to a new set of people that are terrific and I've relied on for many things in my life, and hopefully I've provided some value to them and theirs. But it really made such an impact on me. I was hired by a Thunderbird right after school. Just the association's been quite strong. This just gives me a chance to very, hopefully meaningfully, but for me, it's a way to give back and recognize the school, what it's done. And if in any small measure I can help create that environment for people coming through the school now, then I've done a good thing for them.
Did you work on any cool projects with your council, with your members of the TGAN? Any great experiences?
Well, yes, the TGAN was quite active in the events leading up to the grand opening of the new world headquarters downtown Phoenix. We were involved in helping promote that and bring people together for that. And there was also a reunion associated with it. That was probably the biggest factor is, that took place as I was a co-chair of the TGAN.
That's great, and it's a beautiful building. I just visited for the first time. It's amazing.
It is really a special building, and what I learned this last time through is as technologically advanced as it is and as cool as it is, there's plans on all of that being taken to the next level.
Excellent, and I loved how they preserved all the artwork from the previous campus. And it's displayed in the hallways.
Yeah. I could take hours walking up and down those hallways and looking at the pictures and the Hall of Presidents and Deans and such.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners, Thunderbird alums, want to be part of this council of TGAN Council, what would you recommend them? How to go about it?
Contact the school, through the alumni department, and I'm sure they would be very interested in hearing the interest that others would have in joining the network.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's switch gears and talk about your professional life right now. You're running a big company. You're traveling across the world. Tell us how did it happen? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I was recruited to work for NiSoft years ago and joined the company. I'd been in a related industry serving related customer sets. And so I joined NiSoft. Soon, what I found out later is they were a little ahead of themselves in hiring, out raising money. The company had been in business a few years, but was quite small. And they were the two owners were raising capital. I was, my position and the plans around that were all tied to that funding. Well, the funding did not materialize, and so I ended up leaving the company after a couple of years. Understood, and this also, part of what happened is this was around the time of the 9/11 event, and that was kind of part and parcel to commerce slowing down for a period of time, the funding drying up. So I wished the guys well and said, look, you've got other things you've got to focus on. I'll go do something else, and I wish you well. And if you ever are inclined to sell the company, I'd be honored to be considered. Alex, 3 years went by. I got a telephone call, and it was one of the founders. He said, "You remember our last meeting in Belfast, where the headquarters is?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we think it's time. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. Yeah, let let me take a look at this. So I put together a business plan. I shopped it around to venture companies, venture funds that I was familiar with in the U.S. It just didn't fit. It just didn't fit for most companies. The company's either too small for its international footprint, or it was too international for its small footprint. So I was not getting the traction that I was hoping to find in the U.S. So I started looking in Northern Ireland, and the first telephone call I made, still remember where I was sitting, and where, the nature of the conversation. I got a hold of a venture fund in Northern Ireland. I talked to the guy that happened to pick up the phone that day, was their MD, and I told him a little bit about what I was thinking, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but I'm looking at a binder on my bookshelf, and it has the word NiSoft on the spine." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "I really like the company. I like everything about it. I tried to invest in this about 3 years ago." I said, "Oh, okay, you're the guy." And he said, "Have you got a business plan?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Have you got a PowerPoint deck?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Just send me the PowerPoint deck." So he went through that. We got on the telephone. We went through some numbers, we went through some strategy, went through some plans, and what we thought we could do, what it would take from them, what it would take from me. He's a terrific guy who's become a personal friend as well over the years. His comment when he'd done all the evaluation, it was, "Let's get it." And that's all, let's go get it. And so we did. We acquired the company in 2008. I became the CEO. It was a friendly event. Of course, the founders had actually approached me. It was non-competitive, so we were the ones they were working with exclusively. So we put it together. I rejoined the company in 2008 as a CEO and minority owner, and then in 2021, been with that venture fund for quite some time. It was a very supportive relationship, but they had expressed an interest in exiting. They were wanting to consolidate funds, and so we had straddled two of their funds, and so I ended up acquiring their shares from them, and so became 100% owner of the company.
Take me back to that time when the owners of the company approached you, and you didn't have entrepreneurial experience at that point, right? You worked in corporate world all your life prior to that, and you thinking about buying this business and running this business and being a business owner, entrepreneur. What went through your mind? Did it create any fears, or how did you deal with it?
Tying this into the earlier conversation, my dad being a co-owner of a business, a small business, but all the things that he went through, and I heard, that must have been somewhat in the back of my mind. It wasn't totally uncharted waters from a standpoint of hearing that growing up, day by day by day. So there was a degree of comfort, I guess, in that thought. I had always wanted to direct a company. Didn't have to be big. Being the one that oversaw everything from sales and marketing to production to customer support to personnel to finance, and bringing those disciplines and entities together, and supporting creating a mission and a vision and prospering that. That's had always been in the back of my mind. I had terrific bosses over the years that really allowed me to do a lot of, I guess, to your term, really express an entrepreneurial viewpoint within the context of a bigger corporation. So when this came up, when I mentioned to them when I was leaving, if you ever had the thought of selling, I'd be honored to be considered. And then when that came to fruition, it really wasn't it wasn't a stretch. The thought process had been in, kind of under the surface. The company was small enough. What struck me, Alex, is we were doing everything that big companies do. And when I rejoined the company, I said, "Look, I'm so proud of this organization. We're doing the same things that IBM's doing, that Oracle's doing, that the big companies are doing. We're just doing it on a very small scale. But we design software, we develop software, we market and sell software, we install software, and then we support that software, and we do it all over the world for very, very large customers. And so I said, I can get my arms around it because it's not huge. Financially, it's not a big company. Number of personnel is not large. You can call the key players, the managers into a room. We can discuss things. It was pretty nimble, and yet tying together that international aspect from Thunderbird, we were doing business in all corners of the world, and that is really intriguing to me.
Got it. So what's the most exciting parts of running a business right now?
Well, I think it's when we achieve a goal, when we, whether, and that could be in any number of things, Alex. If there's a sale, and that could be a unique sale that's real critical. It's a new market for us. It represents something new, a challenge, and we've achieved that. Whether that's a sales number for the year, a revenue number for a year, but achieving that. New product development is pretty cool. That's exciting to get something that from an idea to hearing a report from a customer that they're really happy with something that we've developed new. It says, okay, we're still on the right track. We're producing value for end user customers. So those are the things that kind of get me excited. And then from a personnel standpoint, I'm at an age, and you can tell from the gray hair, that I get pretty jazzed when I'm around the developers and the younger folks, the installing team. Boy, they're smart. They're smart.
Well,
they're fun to be around.
Smart people.
Well, and it's terrific. And then when you see them step out of comfort zones and take on more responsibility, and I can sometimes feel like I'm a bit of the one that pushes them out of the nest. And well, I'm not sure. Yes, I'm glad you're not sure, because that's the right attitude. But I'm here to help you. You've got people around you that are here to help you. I've got confidence. I think this is going to work. Let's give it a try. And when you do that, and you see them step up and feel the appreciation for the opportunity, and feel the pride in a job well done, that's exciting.
What's your hiring philosophy?
I'm a big one on attitude. You've got to merge capability with attitude. You've got to have the right skill set. But there's a lot of people out there in the world that have terrific skill sets. But to me, I'm a big attitude guy. And it's, if you want to get on my bad side, tell me it's not your job. And particularly in a small company. Now, I just look for team members that are saying, look, if there's something that needs to be done and I can help, I'm willing to help. And that attitude, the attitude of being servants to our customers. We're only in business. We're only as good as our last sale, our last support call, our point of contact with a customer. And if we ever feel like we are not serving them, then we've lost our way. So, when I'm hiring, I'm looking for the right attitude.
Got it. And what are the biggest challenges in the business right now? In the software?
Probably, there's several. This whole remote work from home situation is a challenge. It's worked for us. We transitioned very quickly when we needed to, and we've actually benefited in developing a new methodology for implementing our software that's much more efficient, and is a great outcome of having to work remotely. But the culture, the sense of community, maintaining that common vision is more difficult for me, what I've experienced in a 100% work remote environment. Yes, it's efficient from the standpoint of people aren't sitting on trains or in traffic going to and from work. I get that. There's a better balance between home life, personal life, and work. And I'm not one, to watch people punch a clock. That's not the way. That's not our model. That's not my style. It's more just, what do we need to do together to further the business for the benefit of our employees, but also for the benefit of our customers. So, whenever that happens to be, whenever we need that, that's, when it needs to take place. So working from home in that respect is a good thing. But it's a challenge to build that sense of and maintain that sense of community. That's a challenge. Another challenge, Alex, is just the pace of change with technology. We sit at an intersection of pragmatic use of technology for what our applications do in large industrial environments. All the latest bells and whistles are not needed in many cases, but in other cases they are. So we sit at this intersection of having to have very solid application functionality, but also having to make sure that we're watching new technologies, new capabilities, and interlacing those into our offering, but in a very prudent way. So the pace of that, the number of things that we're evaluating just seems to be constantly increasing. And so it's a challenge to stay relevant with technology, but also pragmatic and solid as far as what we can deliver.
Do you use any AI tools yet in your business?
We do. We've recently introduced AI in our development for our development team. We're doing some benchmarking, which is interesting, having a module or a set of functionality, both created by the old way, an individual sitting down, doing the design, doing the development, his or herself, and then alongside of that, employing the AI tool to assist in that, and then doing a head-to-head comparison. The time savings is substantial with the AI tool. We're being very cautious, again, because of the nature of our application that deals with safety. We've got to be very careful and make sure that we have vetted everything that the AI tool assists us with. But even going back through that, we're finding that there's a terrific improvement in productivity.
And can you walk us through day in life of a CEO today?
This CEO?
Yes.
Well, I think there's different focus on different days, I guess. And it kind of depends on the time of the year and whether we're approaching year end, month end, quarter end, whatever. But, because we work with customers all over the world, we have offices all over the world. I generally wake up in the morning to a pretty healthy share of email. And so that's come in overnight. So I need to tend to those, scan through those and make sure I picked up the high spots and not held anybody else back on what they're doing because they're waiting on an answer from me. So there's a lot of that. There's a few standing meetings. I'm not one for a lot of standing meetings all the time, but I do meet regularly with the management team. And so, there's a degree of just preparation of that, attending the meetings, and then the follow-up from those. Because we're not a real large company at all, and so I do get involved helping the sales team. So much of the success of a company is revenue generation, keeping that, and so work a lot with the sales team on their planning and execution. How can I help out? Again, this is modeling after terrific bosses I've had. They said, use me as a tool. When you need me to come in and support what you're doing, let me know. And they were always welcome to, always willing to do that. And that I make myself available to the sales team for that. Not in an egotistical way whatsoever, but there's something with the title. And so if I can come in and play a role, help the sales team achieve their goals, then that's something that I'd like to do. So I spent time with that. Obviously, worked through the finances, making sure that we're doing what we need to do there to respect the financial side of the business, and then strategy. Looking. It's easy for everybody, to really focus on the day-to-day things that they have to do. That's critical. And so I have to step away and force myself to say, take a step back. Where's the puck moving? Where are things, what's changing in the industry? What are the decision processes? What are the related technologies around what we do? How are those influencing us? And how do we, within that changing chessboard, how do we best position ourselves with the story and with the product and services?
And you mentioned that you have offices throughout the world, I assume in Europe and in the US and Asia. How do you manage it? And what's the culture in the company like being so remote?
Well, we manage it. I've got a terrific team that manage different functional areas within the company. So just picking the services side of the company, we have people who work directly with our customers, installing the software, tailoring the software, supporting the software in the regions. And the managers in Belfast, the senior managers that drive that, that run that group, have regular meetings. They've got schedules. We use some technology on portfolio project management. So there's constant communication with those teams, and we try to visit the outposts, if you will, as on a regular basis, just to make sure that those team members feel a part of the culture, part of the NiSoft community, and that they're appreciated.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing all this about your business. That's fascinating. So, if you could go back in time and give advice to a 20-year-old self, what would you tell?
Yeah, I think I'd say don't be afraid to take chances. Tell myself, don't be afraid to take the chances, and make sure that you pay attention to detail.
Excellent. Thank you. And if you were to give advice to Thunderbird students who's about to graduate and go into the world and find that first job, what would you tell them?
If the pure value of a relationship, an employer-employee relationship, is to increase the value of the organization. And by doing so, you've enhanced your own value. But look at yourself as a resource to help your boss and the organization achieve their objectives. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about the community, it's about the vision and the mission of the organization. Research them. Know yourself, be humble, be assertive. Humble and assertive are two different things. Be assertive, but be humble and understand that you've got the capacity to play a role, fulfill a role, and do it to the service of the organization. I think if you do that, there's a purity of spirit that comes through, and that you're not looking just for a job, you're not just looking for a paycheck, but you're looking for an opportunity to contribute. And I think that would serve people quite well.
Excellent. And last question. If you had an opportunity to send a message to all Thunderbird alumni, or put it on a big billboard and so that they all can see it, what would you say?
Get back involved.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doc. And before we go, what are the best ways to reach out to you if anybody's interested to learn more about you or get connected with you?
Alex, I've got a profile out on LinkedIn, and that has the contact information to follow. So people, I welcome any contact.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doc. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Alex, nice to see you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.